Ever feel like there are these like hidden depths to your personality?
Like maybe even parts of yourself you haven't really met yet.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. Carl Jung's theory of anima and animus.
You know, the masculine and feminine energies inside all of us.
When I first read Jung, honestly, I was kind of blown away by how relevant it still feels.
Like he really tapped into something fundamental about just the human experience.
Absolutely. And what I think is so fascinating is how
You know, even decades later, these
they
concepts
still resonate with people.
from all walks of life, so it really speaks to the enduring power of his insight.
Right. It's like, how did he know this stuff?
So to even start unpacking this, we got to start with archetypes.
Think of these as like,
Universal, primal, like almost pre-programmed patterns of energy.
and these patterns, they're embedded in our unconscious minds.
So Jung believed they shape how we see the world around us, they shape how we see ourselves.
And even how we relate to other people.
It's like this blueprint.
For understanding, for making sense of human behavior.
And while we might not be consciously aware of these archetypes working,
You know, in the background.
their influence is undeniable.
Yeah, it's like we're almost puppets to these unseen forces sometimes.
Okay, so let's dive into two particularly intriguing archetypes.
The anima and animus.
The anima is the feminine archetype present in men.
And conversely, the animus is that masculine archetype in women.
Now, before anyone listening gets totally hung up on gender stereotypes here,
It's so important to understand that Jung was not reinforcing traditional gender roles.
he was actually like way ahead of his time.
He recognized that these energies exist within all of us, no matter how we identify.
Exactly. It's much more nuanced than that.
So, for example, imagine a man who's really drawn to artistic expression.
Or maybe he loves nurturing others.
That could be his anima, his feminine archetype just shining through.
Or picture like a woman who's confidently leading a team. Maybe she's a CEO.
That could very well be her animus, her inner masculine energy in action.
Ooh, I like those examples.
So it's about recognizing this dynamic interplay of energies within each of us.
And Jung actually believed that this interplay, it's not just cool to think about,
It's actually crucial to our personal growth. He called this process individuation.
which is like this journey, this ongoing journey of becoming our most authentic, integrated selves.
Yeah, and Jung argues in his book Aeon,
That achieving this wholeness, this individuation that you're talking about.
it really hinges on acknowledging and balancing these seemingly opposite forces within us.
The anima and animus.
Yes, exactly.
So it's not about denying or suppressing any part of who we are.
But rather, it's about understanding and integrating these different and sometimes seemingly opposite energies.
So this leads us to kind of like the heart of the matter.
What happens when we ignore these aspects of ourselves?
Like, does it just go away quietly? Jung didn't think so.
Instead, he said it can lead to something that he called projection.
Ah, yes, projection. Always a recipe for misunderstandings in relationships.
You tell me about it.
Have you ever, like, felt super drawn to someone?
And then later on, you're like, wait, it was more about what I thought they represented?
It wasn't really about who they actually were. Like, I was projecting something onto them.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a classic example of these archetypes at play.
We see our unintegrated qualities in other people.
And this, you know, this can lead to a lot of things, right? Misunderstandings, idealization, even conflict.
Totally.
It's almost like we're trying to piece together parts of ourselves.
Yeah, we haven't fully owned yet.
Yeah.
And Jung, in his book, The Archetypes of the Collective Unconscious, he explains how this actually creates a kind of a split in our psyche.
Which makes it harder to really connect authentically, not just with ourselves, but with others too.
It's like a barrier we put up without even realizing it.
Exactly. And this can manifest in some really fascinating ways. So for instance, a man who's in denial of his anima, you know, that sensitive, intuitive side.
I might put women up on a pedestal, almost like
Yeah.
idealizing them, right?
Or on the flip side, he might see them as overly emotional or even manipulative.
It's like he's projecting his own unacknowledged, unowned feminine qualities onto these women.
It's almost like those unexamined parts of ourselves, they find a way to make themselves known.
Even if it's through our interactions with other people.
That's right, right.
And on the flip side of that, right?
A woman who hasn't quite integrated her animus, that masculine energy,
She might project her own masculine energy onto men.
you know, maybe perceiving them as domineering, emotionally unavailable, even if that's not totally accurate.
Exactly. And it's not to say that these perceptions are completely baseless.
But they very often stem from our own struggles.
Our own internal struggles with these archetypal energies.
We're all carrying these unconscious patterns within us.
So just to recap here,
We're all kind of walking around, potentially projecting our unintegrated anima or animus onto each other.
no wonder relationships can be so complicated.
Right.
But before we spiral into despair,
The good news is that Jung believed there's a path to healing this split.
there's a way to step into a more complete version of who we are.
Precisely.
And that, my friend, is where things get really interesting.
And that's what we're going to explore when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
So we've kind of laid out this idea that we've all got these masculine and feminine energies within us. The anima and animus, right?
And sometimes, if we're not careful, those energies, they can get a little,
Tangled.
tangled up in our relationships, right?
But the cool thing about Jungian psychology is that it doesn't just like point out the problem, it actually offers a way forward.
Absolutely, yeah.
He really believed we can integrate these energies and live much more fulfilling lives because of it.
It's not about erasing those differences, right? But
Yeah.
but sort of embracing this wholeness within ourselves. That makes sense, but where do we even, begin with that?
It feels like some serious soul searching needs to happen first.
It does require some introspection, yeah, absolutely.
But I think a good place to start with this
Hmm.
is to just think about the qualities that you might be drawn to.
Or maybe even put off in the other gender.
Often those very qualities are kind of a reflection.
Of your own anima or animus. Like they're just bubbling up to the surface.
Oh, that's such an interesting way to think about that.
So for example, if I really admire when a man can, be sensitive, express his emotions really freely.
Could that be like a sign that I need to maybe tap into my own anima, my own capacity for those things?
Exactly.
Or let's say you find yourself getting uncomfortable when a woman's assertive. Like maybe you even judge it as being bossy.
Could it be that you're suppressing your own inner animus, your own capacity for that kind of strength, that directness?
Wow, that is a really powerful question to sit with for sure. It's like holding a mirror up to those like knee-jerk reactions we have and saying,
Okay, what actually happening here?
but recognizing those patterns, that's just step one though, right?
How do we actually integrate these hidden parts?
Well, awareness is always a really good starting point, right?
But to really fully integrate these
I
energies.
think we've got to go a little deeper than that.
Jungian analyst James Hollis, in his book, The Eden Project.
He actually lays out some really practical steps you can take for this kind of integration work.
All right, well, give us the inside scoop.
What does he say?
Well, he really emphasizes that it's not about forcing ourselves into this box, right?
This idea of, okay, this is what's masculine, this is what's feminine.
It's about honoring your own unique individuality, And he suggests things like meditation can be helpful, journaling, even therapy.
Those can all be super helpful in really getting to know these unconscious aspects of ourselves.
It's like those practices give us that safe container to actually turn inward and get to know these hidden parts, right?
Exactly.
And journaling, especially,
Yeah.
just using prompts,
What is it about, other people that makes me uncomfortable?
or what do I secretly admire?
Yeah.
That can really, really bring some interesting stuff to the surface.
So it's like getting curious about those less explored corners of our own psyche.
Yeah.
Those parts of ourselves that we don't even realize are shaping our experiences.
And then sometimes it's helpful to have a guide on that journey,
Maybe a therapist, somebody trained in this kind of Jungian psychology.
They can really provide that safe and supportive space.
To kind of unpack those deeper layers and work through any resistance that comes up.
Yeah, it's like having a Sherpa guide you through the terrain of your own mind, right?
Exactly. And speaking of guides,
For those listening who are like, okay, this all sounds very theoretical, very abstract, are there any examples of people who embody this balance, this animus balance in real life?
oh, absolutely, yeah.
In fact, Jung himself, he wrote quite a bit about his own journey in integrating his anima.
In his autobiography, Memories, Dreams, Reflections.
He talks about how this process really deepened his work, his relationships, just his understanding of himself.
So it's really a powerful testament to the transformative potential of this work.
It's always so inspiring to hear about people who have walked the path.
Right. And they've come out on the other side feeling more whole.
Right.
Are there other examples, like maybe from history or pop culture, or even mythology.
Oh, tons.
Think about the concept of yin and yang in Chinese philosophy.
It's all about the balance of these seemingly opposite forces, very similar to the anima and animus.
Or even think about like archetypal figures in mythology.
Like Wonder Woman.
She embodies strength and compassion.
Mhm.
She's a really good example.
Those are such good examples. Wonder Woman is such a great archetype for like someone who can embrace both.
Those masculine and feminine energies.
And it's so fascinating to see these themes kind of pop up across cultures and throughout history, right?
It really speaks to their like universality.
Mm-hmm.
So to recap what we've talked about so far,
We've explored this idea of the anima and animus, these masculine and feminine energies within all of us.
we've talked about how suppressing them can really mess things up in our relationships.
And we've even touched on some practical things that we can actually do to integrate these energies and just live more authentically.
And remember,
It's a journey. This is not a destination.
it's an ongoing process of self-discovery and growth.
So well said. It's not about being like perfectly balanced overnight.
Right.
It's about like continually showing up, doing the work, and just striving for that harmony within.
And this leads to a question for all of you listening as we start to wrap up today's deep dive.
So as you're, going about your day, just try to notice those moments.
When you have like a really strong reaction to someone,
Maybe you're like instantly smitten.
or maybe you just like can't stand their vibe.
Yeah.
See if you can like take a step back in those moments and ask yourself like,
Okay.
what is it about this person? What's triggering such a strong reaction in me
Is it possible I'm maybe seeing something in them?
that I haven't fully acknowledged within myself?
Ooh, that's good.
It's like Jung's giving us a whole new lens to understand our experiences with, right?
Absolutely.
Both internally and in our relationship.
Yeah, and the more we can really understand these archetypes,
The better we can navigate not just our own inner world,
but also those interactions with others. And we can do that with a lot more self-awareness and compassion for ourselves and for the people around us.
it's like we're all in this together, right?
We're all like figuring out this anima and animus dance as we go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, embracing our wholeness. This doesn't mean we're all trying to be androgynous, right?
It's not about losing that unique sense of self,
It's really about integrating those masculine and feminine energies.
So they're not at odds with each other. They're working together, kind of dancing together,
I love that image of like the energies dancing. You feel so much more fluid.
Than like this rigid balance, you know what I mean?
Yes. It's all about that process, right?
It's ongoing.
Well, we have covered so much ground today.
From like the depths of our unconscious minds to like all the messy realities of relationships.
I don't know about you, but I am like ready to go grab my journal and start processing some of this stuff.
As you should.
And remember, curiosity is key here, right?
The more we can approach these hidden parts of ourselves with curiosity.
The more we open ourselves up to that greater understanding of who we are.
And in turn have more fulfilling relationships.
So well said. And on that note, it's time for us to wrap up.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.